The industry really came to us back in the hills of eastern Tennessee, back at the turn of the century when my grandfather, as a young man, they built wood frame barns and houses to dwell in and for family members. And in the 20s moved to Indiana for better opportunities, and it was a pretty hard scrabble life in Tennessee at that point in time. After the Depression, my father was born and they went on with building houses. Through the war years, into the 50s, really started to get after building homes and building residential neighborhoods that had character and that were unique. Ultimately, between my father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, built over 5,000 homes in east central Indiana. Wood components and modular type construction became a part of building a large number of homes, even in the 50s, initially utilizing a product called a TECO split ring to build trusses on site in small, modest residential 1,900 square foot, 1,500 square foot structures. My father always had an eye to do more and to do better. He always had, his heart was in carpentry, knowing the difficulty of that job and the camaraderie of the job as well. But took that and went and sought out modular builders in the late 50s and early 60s that led to components. And that's the connection. The connection was from carpentry to components, from a TECO split ring in the 50s to metal connected roof trusses and floor trusses in the 60s and 70s.
I ended up joining the company 12 years ago, and I was always interested in the automation aspect of it. So I've been kind of chasing that since I first started, because that's the direction I really wanted the company to go in. It's interesting to see how kind of slow that uptake has been in the industry, and that's one of the things that we've been really pushing lately the last few years. Over the years, we visited hundreds of truss plants trying to find the issues that our customers were facing and how we would solve those issues with robotics. We also went to some places that had robotics installed already to see how they were tackling those problems and how those robotic systems were performing. That search took us really all over Europe, all over the United States. As we traveled throughout North America in particular, the biggest issue that we saw facing almost every truss plant we visited, a lot of the workers in the truss plants are aging out, and we're not seeing a lot of younger employees come in to the industry. So anywhere we go, that's always one of their biggest concerns is with staffing, how they're going to fill their truss plants with people. And that's when we really realized that we had to get more involved with robotics to solve that issue.
How do you motivate people to do a tough job, to build a product that has to be structurally correct and structurally precise, both from the design end and the manufacturing end? And we've always looked at it, I believe, from a perspective of a carpenter's perspective, and myself having worked in a component plant for a while, how do we make that job easier, more rewarding, and build a product that serves the industry and serves its structural purpose? As we move across the country, as you move across North America, the products look very similar. A roof truss in Michigan looks very similar to a roof truss in Arizona. But Arizona doesn't have snow loading. And Michigan doesn't have masonry tile roofs. You have seismic concerns in the west. You have wind loading in the southeast.
Hurricanes in Florida, there's just different codes all over the place, so it's really hard to find one solution that works for everybody.
Products that look similar, that looks the same to the average person, vary greatly. And the techniques to build greatly, the materials they use vary greatly. Technology doesn't care where it's building, it just needs to know what it's building, and it builds it precisely, and it builds it in the most efficient manner possible. One of the things that is really highlighted is speed. And speed's an interesting point where people say, well, this individual, I've got a guy or I've got a gal that's super fast and super good at plating a plated connection on a roof truss. And that may be true, and they may be faster. They may be faster than a robotic arm the first hour, but not the second hour or the fifth hour or the eighth hour. That's where the stamina and that's where the endurance really comes into play with robotics. And it isn't just better than an individual, it supports that individual. It supports their stamina so that at the end of the day, they go home and they're not burnt out, they're not wore out. Whether it's cutting the lawn or playing ball with the kids, there's still some fuel left in the tank. It's an enduring pace that robotics can keep without overtaxing people. My father always pushed forward and always had in mind the guy in the field, the guy on the job site that was building those structures, was building those products. He knew it as a carpenter, and he knew that it was a There was difficulties and there was better ways to do it that made it easier, faster, and built a better product.
Having my grandpa start the company and then my dad and then me, one of the things that I learned early on, if you don't have your customer's best interest in mind, that was very early on driven home that at the end of the day, you do what's right for the customer no matter what. And whether that's, recommending not buying something versus buying something, it's always been important to make sure that our customers have the right information to make the right decisions at the end of the day. And that's one of the things that I've learned working with my dad and my grandpa is just how to serve our customers and to make sure that we're providing the right solutions for them.